and welcome to Politics London. In the next half hour, they call Andy Burnham the King of the North, but what would his leadership mean down here in London?
This now is the change moment. We have an opportunity to turn the tide, to make the country feel like it's working again.
It's 10 years since the Brexit vote, and today Sadiq Khan is putting pressure on his party to undo the referendum. But is he right?
At some stage, we're going to join the European Union again. Why delay the inevitable and suffer in the meantime?
And we'll ask what can be done to reverse the decline in London's hedgehog population. Great to have you with us this morning. Hello, good morning. I'm Samantha Simmons, and joining us for the whole programme are Jonathan Bartley, former co-leader of the Green Party, now a cabinet member on Lambeth Council, Barry Gardiner, the Labour MP for Brent West, and Layla Cunningham, who will be Reform UK's candidate for London Mayor in 2028. Welcome to you all. Great to have you with us on the programme this morning. So let's start with Andy Burnham's return to Parliament and the impact it could have here in the capital. Here's what he said in the early hours of Friday morning.
Everyone knows that politics isn't working. Everyone can feel that the country isn't where it should be. Tonight just could, be the turning point. From here on, I will give everything I have got to make it so, to ensure the name Makerfield is forever synonymous with bringing about the change this country needs. Bringing back something we've lost, hope for the future.
Well, Andy Burnham's feeling hopeful. How hopeful are you feeling this morning, Barry?
I'm feeling very hopeful. Yeah, no, of course I am. Look, we've had a situation where the government has not had the courage to do some of the things that it should have been doing. Thames Water, just look at that. It affects every Londoner, in fact, quarter of England have their supply from Thames Water. It's a complete disaster. The government hasn't had the confidence to get in there and say, we need to take back control of this into public control. Burnham's one of the key things that he's been talking about is precisely how we go about doing that. So these are the sort of things that I look forward to someone coming in, having the courage just to get on and do the stuff that we all know needs doing.
OK, but he hasn't said he's going to be or fight a leadership contest yet. He's just an MP at the moment. Peter Kyle just told Laura Kuenssberg the Prime Minister is thinking carefully about what's in the best interests of the country. You've been clear you want Keir Starmer to go. What's in the best interests of London right now?
Oh, look, I think it is for
Keir Starmer to go?
Yeah, and let me say this. I think that there are conflicting positions here about whether it should be a quick go or whether there should be a contest. And I think whilst I understand people saying this should be fast, we should just get on with it, have a timescale that does it in a matter of days to a couple of weeks, I do think that actually there is something important about actually having a contest, not just so that people can say, well, OK, you're Wes Streeting, you're Keir Starmer, you're Andy Burnham, what are you offering? But actually, from the position I stand, for Andy to have the time to actually present a case to people and to get that support and work out just how he is going to hone government to be able to deliver the things he needs to deliver.
Well, we'll see if that happens in the coming days. But who do you want to be the next leader, the next Prime Minister? Who would be best for London?
Well, I think Andy Burnham.
Why?
Because he's got the courage to do the things that London needs, just as I've outlined to you on Thames Water. It's not just about Thames Water. There's a lot more that's needed. You know, he's been talking about council housing, not just building houses, but council housing. These are things that, you know, any council leader around London will tell you we need more council houses, not just more houses.
Jonathan, what's best for London right now? A new Prime Minister, a new leader of the Labour Party. What's best for the Green Party as well?
Definitely not Keir Starmer. Definitely, I think Andy Burnham is an upgrade. Now, you know, I'm hearing what Barry's saying. I'm hoping that we're going to take a step in the right direction. I know in Lambeth, we desperately need more funding, exactly for what Barry's talking about, council housing, not just affordable housing
Is a
for
new
genuine
Labour leader
council
going to
housing.
provide that?
Well, that's what I don't know, and that's what I'm worried about, because Barry did mention Thames Water, for example. We've heard about public control, but not nationalisation, and I think that's a very important point. If you're talking about trying to win back Green voters to Labour, Green voters, as we understand it, want nationalisation. They don't want the profits from companies still being sucked out of the system. They want what's happened in Gaza to be called out as genocide, and Andy Burnham has not done that. They want fresh economic thinking, not just a simple sign-up to the existing economic rules.
Okay.
And they don't want Shabana Mahmood as Home Secretary any longer. And it seems that, so is
Barry,
there going to
briefly.
actually be any change with Burnham?
Very
Very
briefly.
briefly,
Yep.
Jonathan, one of the mistakes we made was to think there was such a thing as Labour voters, right?
Oh, yeah. Not
you
taking
talk
anyone
about
for
Green
granted.
voters.
Absolutely, yeah.
Actually, they're people who make their own minds up
Absolutely,
at the right time.
And actually, hasn't the Green Party benefited from the disillusionment with Keir Starmer in the local elections? You picked up a lot of votes.
I think it absolutely has benefited, but it also has given people the chance, and you're absolutely right, never take anyone's for granted, and recognising that in this multi-party system, many people are switching between elections, but they came to the Greens because they saw that Greens could win. And now running 6 local authorities, playing a part in it in London, people know that Greens can deliver and can win at the ballot box.
Let's talk about what all this means for reform, because your leadership argued that the win in Makerfield for Andy Burnham, a massive one, a huge number of votes, far more than reform, which you really did fight well. But your leadership has said that actually the people there voted to get Keir Starmer out, not for Andy Burnham per se. But this is a big loss for your party, isn't it? What does it mean for your party in London, for your attempts to become mayor here?
Yeah, I mean, so I have an issue with Andy Burnham as leader, although I do have an issue with Keir Starmer, is he was against, for instance, the third runway in Heathrow because he said it would divert resources from the north. And that's the problem with the Labour Party. Yeah, you'll have it's the same product but a different salesman, because they treat prosperity as something that's finite. They don't treat investment, they treat it as a trade-off as opposed to a multiplier. London doesn't have to suffer for the north to grow. Because prosperity is something to be created, not something to be finite and distributed. And for me, that's the fixed pie fallacy that Labour has, in terms of we should have a government that's talking about how to grow the pie, not how to distribute the ever-shrinking one. And that's the problem. I worry that London will not be seen as the economic engine that it should be under Burnham, because he always talks about diverting resources.
Okay. Barry, what's your view? Is Andy Burnham going to continue to really trumpet the north over the cost of the south?
No, I think what Andy's trying to do is to make sure that people in every single part of this country, not just the north or the south of England, but in Scotland, in Northern Ireland, in Wales, actually have a lifestyle that they can say, you know what, I'm enjoying my life. Instead of at the moment people thinking, why the hell am I going through this? Why am I working all hours God sends and still needing to claim universal credit because I'm not getting paid enough? My kids can't get a house.
Whoever becomes that leader is going to inherit the same situation, the same set of circumstances.
And that's why we need somebody who's got the radical and innovative policies that Andy's got, that he's saying is
Are you saying he'll introduce a wealth tax, Barry?
The answer isn't to hold London back. It's to unleash London's potential and to unleash every other city's potential. They are not competing.
Absolutely.
They are not competing priorities.
Totally.
And I noticed that in your speech you said, we've got to get rid of trickle-down economics. What does that even mean? Does that mean we're going to punish businesses? We're going to punish investment? Because if you punish wealth creators, there will be no wealth to redistribute. What I think the Labour Party fundamentally...
There's plenty of wealth.
Hang on,
question is, will it be
what the Labour Party
redistributed?
fails to understand is that investment in businesses leads to jobs, leads to the tax returns to pay for the public sector. And if you punish wealth creators, there will be no wealth to redistribute.
Let Jonathan come in.
So I think both of us, all of us around this table, have hit on the key point, is he going to tackle inequality in the capital? And there is no quick fix apart from going to get that money from the super rich and redistribute it. And I don't see Andy Burnham as a socialist. I see the Green Party as a socialist party. I do not see the current Labour Parliamentary Party or Andy Burnham as a socialist who is actually going to make that tough political decision. Every indication from him is that he's going to stick with the fiscal rules, he's going to stick with the existing economic order, and he's not going to deliver.
Barry, do you agree that the new leader, whoever it is, whether it is Andy Burnham, needs to go after the rich in London more? Because we have seen over the last 2 years a huge move of wealthy people out of the country already?
Look, Layla talks about, taxing the super rich, and all Labour wants to do is that.
I didn't say that at all.
Can I just point out that Reform are always protecting the rich, right? And they're telling the poor, the reason you're poor is because there's somebody else, the immigrant or somebody else that's poorer than you, that's taking your jobs. They never actually address the issue of why are you being so badly paid in the first place? Why is it that the state has to subsidise your wage bill as a company because you're paying your workers so low?
Okay, so let me respond. How would you respond to that if you were mayor?
Yeah, because since 1997, since 2008, we've had wage stagnation, and that is due to mass migration because we've imported foreign cheap wages. And when you do that, you keep wages low in this country.
You're doing it.
No, I'm sorry. You don't
blame the immigrant.
You don't fund public services by punishing
you want to
wealth.
represent London, and you're on this programme blaming the immigrant.
You don't fund. It's not relaxed, Barry. You don't fund public services by punishing wealth creators. You fund it by growing the economy, and that means encouraging growth, encouraging success, encouraging wealth, because you need wealth to redistribute it.
Barry accuses your party of targeting immigrants. Is that fair criticism?
We are targeting the fact that you cannot deny that wages have been stagnant since 2008, and that is due to mass migration. You say that we can only have a functioning public service if we keep importing foreign wages, but then that cuts the very working class, class that you're meant to represent. You have undercut them with mass migration. Yes, because in 2004, your party didn't impose any. But they didn't impose transitional controls, and everyone that came in fundamentally undercut the working class that you were meant to represent, and that's what precipitated Brexit.
All right.
And you know it.
We're going to carry on talking about this in just a moment, in sorts anyway, because next, if you can believe it, this week marks 10 years since this moment.
A 4-point lead leaving the EU, and that's the result of this referendum, which has been preceded by weeks and months of argument and dispute and all the rest of it. The British people have spoken, and the answer is we're out.
Of course, in London, Brexit has always faced criticism, with nearly 60% in the capital casting their ballots for Remain. And in a new interview broadcast this morning, the Mayor of London has renewed his calls for the country to re-enter the bloc. He's calling on Labour to include a promise to rejoin the EU in its next manifesto.
That way, sooner rather than later, we can avoid the economic damage, the cultural damage, the social damage being done to our capital city and our country. At some stage, we're going to join the European Union again. Why delay the inevitable and suffer in the meantime?
Well, Layla, is Sadiq Khan right? Should we reverse Brexit? He and many economists say that it's done massive damage to the London economy.
The biggest benefit of Brexit is that we have decisions made in Westminster, not Brussels. Brexit has given our government and our country incredible freedoms. And
so what decisions have been made in the last 10 years because of Brexit that benefit Londoners?
So we can do our own trade deals. We can control immigration. I'm not saying that previous governments had, but we've ended free movement of the EU. Sadly, what the Conservatives did was replace that with non-EU mass migration. People didn't vote to swap one for the other. We can have regulatory freedom. Right now, the City of London...
We can do these things.
But we haven't.
But are Londoners' lives better, or are they worse off because economically we have suffered?
I don't think you can isolate Brexit as any kind of defining factor of the economic status we are in. We've had Brexit, we've had COVID, we've had the Ukraine war.
Lots of people have. City Hall have. We've had the Bank of England, the OBR. The Stanford University, they have isolated Brexit as the key reason that the UK economy is worse off.
So then how can they isolate Ukraine and COVID from that and government decisions? There's no point in relitigating Brexit because it was a massive vote to leave. What we now need to do is use the powers and the freedoms that Brexit gave us to make it the best it can be. And I think the frustration with Brexit is not Brexit itself. It's the fact that governments have not utilised the freedoms that Brexit promised properly. As I said, they promised to end EU free movement, and we've replaced it with mass migration.
Let me just ask Barry, are we better off because of Brexit? Should we reverse it, or have we just failed to make the most of it, as Layla says.
First point, it wasn't a massive vote in favour. What happened was it was 51-49. I mean, it was a tiny majority.
A million
It's still a vote.
And
A million people.
and it was still a vote, and I respect it, and that's why I disagree with Sadiq on this. And I believe
So we shouldn't rerun that vote.
I believe Sadiq is arguing on simply the economy, and the points that Layla tried to make, I think, were important ones. And that is that there's an issue here about sovereignty. And people weren't just voting on the economy, do we leave, do we stay, on whether I'm going to be better off or not. They did actually vote because they believed that they wanted what they saw as sovereign control. Now, I think a lot of what was sold to them at Brexit was complete lies and rubbish, okay? I was a Remainer, I wanted to remain, but I don't want to rejoin because I respect the will of the British people in a democratic referendum. Now, I think it should have been, if you're going to change the constitutional status of the country, you should do it on something like 2/3, because that then says the country's not going to shift. What we've seen in the past 10 years is, as you say, the economists came out. At first, they said it had cost us 4.8% of GDP growth. Okay, now the latest figures coming out of economists are saying it's cost us between 6 and 12% of GDP growth.
Yeah.
The thing is, Brexit doesn't guarantee...
Let Jonathan come in. Let Jonathan come in, because I just actually want to ask you about some of the positives that Layla's outlined there, because it isn't all about the economy, as Jonathan, as we've heard there from Barry and Layla. Brexit's given the UK the ability to move away from the EU, things like bringing in a new immigration system, banning live exports, imposing VAT on private schools, etc., etc. What's your view?
I will come to that, but I do want to come in on this economy point because we're talking about it as if everyone is impacted in exactly the same way by Brexit, and they're not. What these debates over the economy actually mask is that the people with the wealth had a very protected experience of Brexit. They weren't really hit. The people that had the large investments, and of course money can flow right across the world, it's people, we stopped moving. So they could put their money wherever they liked and protect it. It was the poor who were suffering from the new trade tariffs. It was the poor who were suffering from the hit on jobs. It was the poor that were suffering from the businesses that no longer were able to export. So this idea that the economy was hit equally is absolutely nonsense. I think we need to recognise that it is the poorest that have been hit the hardest. And we have a lot of right-wingers in this country funded by very, very large vested interests who don't want their wealth touched. They want to protect their wealth. And therefore, they are funding these right-wing parties, like Reform, to blame migrants, to hit those people as scapegoats rather than actually take the responsibility for themselves. It is the wealthy that need to share their wealth. We need a wealth tax in this country. And that is the big elephant.
Since World War II, and our economy has not grown. Have you not seen
wealth
the correlation?
Wealth is not taxed like income, and you know that wealth is not taxed like income. The wealthy get a free ride.
Do you believe in the concept of private property? That if I work very, very hard and I accumulate... No, obviously you don't.
Don't put up a straw man. That's not what we're talking about.
That's not a straw man, because you're talking about taxing... You're talking
tax wealth fairly.
You are talking...
Tax it like income in the same fair way.
What is wealth? What is wealth to you?
Investments that you have
in
property, investment you have in land, investment you have in capital.
What does someone have to do to get investment? Just the question. Sorry.
Let's lower the tone, but also let's just stick with the idea of Brexit and the EU and whether or not we should rejoin it. You don't think we should? You think there's lots of benefits potentially that we haven't accessed?
But we could have a much closer relationship.
So I'm asking Layla about that because the London Chamber of Commerce told us Brexit's created additional barriers to trade, investment, recruitment and growth for London businesses. They want to see reduced trade barriers. Are you open to negotiation?
I think I'm open to all open trade. I think free trade and good trade agreements is the best. And luckily, through Brexit, your party managed to negotiate a trade agreement with India. We couldn't have done that in Brexit. Without Brexit, you couldn't have imposed 20% VAT on schools.
Have we replaced the lost trade deals?
Listen,
nowhere near. And the thing about Brexit is there was no blueprint.
Can I just come in? You asked me a question. I don't think being part of the biggest trade bloc fundamentally just guarantees economic prosperity. Look at Singapore. Look at Switzerland. It comes from being competitive and actually believing that growth comes from people.
Can I give you a positive about Brexit?
Please do.
What I love about Brexit, and I think there was a fundamental inequality over immigration, and I'm going to say this loudly and proudly as the borough representing Lambeth, the borough that voted Remain in the biggest numbers out of England and Wales, that we now have more migrants from outside the European Union, and I want to say I celebrate that. I am not going to say that migration is a bad thing. I'm going to say it's a positive thing from which we all benefit, and we love it in Lambeth. We love our communities. And what we have in these new arrangements is a wonderful diversity, not just of people from the European Union, but people from outside the European Union. And actually that diversity makes us stronger.
Do you accept that mass migration has suppressed wages in this country?
I think
do you
it
accept
is
that?
government policy.
Do you accept that or
not migration.
So
no, I'm never going to blame migrants.
You don't accept that mass... It's not about... Stop talking about the politics of blame. It is data and looking at facts. My God.
Okay.
It is about mass migration.
my word.
It is government policy. Mass migration.
Okay, Barry.
Mass migration has
Let
caused...
Barry come in.
Can I just explain why Jonathan and I both laughed?
Yes.
Because Reform and Renew, they are parties...
What's Renew?
Restore. Are parties that are actually focused around blame. I mean, I go on GB News quite a lot, and I take on the arguments that... But every time I'm on GB News, whether it's Layla or somebody else, it's always blame the migrant, blame the migrant, blame the migrant.
Okay, so
Layla, the idea
briefly...
that Layla is saying it's not about the politics of blame is what caused us both to laugh.
No, that's what it's about. Government policy.
No, that's what Jonathan said.
Governments have used mass migration as a replacement of economic growth, investment in skills and wages. Wages have been stagnant since 2008.
So you're saying that your party doesn't blame migrants for a lot of economic issues?
We blame mass migration. It's not the actual migrant. We blame the government policy that allowed mass migration to suppress wages.
Let me ask you briefly about a youth mobility scheme, which the government's looking at, because obviously that stopped when we had Brexit. This would mean young people aged 18 to 30 can live and work in the EU for 2 years, vice versa. Are you all in support of that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think our young people have, again, lost out from opportunities to move through Brexit. I would like to see much more scope for our young people to be able to move abroad.
When they come here, they go back, and then 3-4 years later, when they're running businesses, who do I want to work with? Oh yeah, I had a wonderful time in Britain. I want to go back and I want to do trade with Britain. This is what builds trade. It's these exchanges that actually make us more profitable.
Would it benefit London, this scheme?
People voted for Brexit for controlled migration, not for free movement, no matter what the age limit is. And that you're trying to reverse Brexit and relitigate it through the back door. So this isn't a good idea,
this youth mobility scheme?
No, I don't think we need more youth from the EU. I think we need to foster the youth here.
Also London youth can
it comes both ways.
I want to create a Britain where the youth don't want to go to Europe, where they want to stay here, where they have the best jobs.
Don't you want...
I don't want to undermine... No, hang on.
Okay.
I don't want to undermine the youth of this country. I don't want to create an escape route for them. I want to create a city and a country where they want to stay, where they see prosperity and a future for themselves in this country, not in the EU.
OK, we're going to bring a bit of calm to proceedings now this morning, because we're going to talk, finally, about hedgehogs. When was the last time you saw one of these creatures? Well, estimates are that we've lost about a third of hedgehogs across Britain since the year 2000. And in London, there has been a historic decline. But it's not all doom and gloom, with substantial hedgehog hotspots being discovered in north-east London, including Highgate and Hampstead, as well as Barnes and Chiswick in the southwest. Our senior reporter Helen Drew has been on the trail of the prickly mammals.
So this is the gate to the garden. This is the hole for hedgehogs to come through from the front to the back.
Perfectly hedgehog-sized?
Yes.
Oh wow.
Over the years, Alice Mallory has built several hedgehog-friendly features in her London garden.
OK, so I'll just show you over here where we've got one of the holes through the wall. This is a big Victorian wall that's been drilled through so that the hedgehogs can get access through the gardens.
Barnes Hedgehog Highway?
Yes.
She's also set up feeding stations, and her reward is sightings of these nocturnal creatures. As night falls, we wait. And then, one little hedgehog. A regular, Alice says.
I guess in a very low-key way, being able to see any wildlife in your garden is good for the soul. You know, they're going down in numbers, so there's something about them which is vulnerable and charming.
Alice lives in Barnes, which is a hedgehog hotspot, according to ZSL's London Hogwatch manager. We meet on Hampstead Heath, another hotspot.
These are camera traps, and we put these up all across the city to see where hedgehogs are. So we put them in place like here, and then we leave them out for about a few weeks. They'll trigger every time an animal goes past, and then we'll have a look at the data when we collect them back in.
They've put camera traps in 21 London boroughs and have captured 30 million images. Over the last few years, hedgehogs' decline has been partly due to concreting over green spaces in the capital.
Hedgehogs have declined historically throughout Britain, and they're now on the red list for British mammals as vulnerable to extinction. And we've also seen that decline in London as well. If you think about it, hedgehogs, they're quite small, they've got short legs, they're not like squirrels and foxes that can kind of get almost anywhere across London. They're really susceptible to barriers and urban infrastructure, so roads, fences, walls, and that means that they can't get to the places that they need to, and also the loss of green spaces in London as well. So that's why we don't really see them in the really urban centre, and we see them much more as we get a bit further out where there's more gardens and green spaces.
For many hedgehogs across London over the last 20 years, their journeys have come to an end. Back in Barnes, and this little one is off for a wander. His night is just beginning.
Oh, I mean, who doesn't love a hedgehog? Barry, you're the former Minister for Biodiversity. What's your view on the plight of the hedgehog in London?
Look, it actually is really serious. We've lost 335,000 hedgehogs. And what we need is, if people who have fences can just make sure that there's a little hole at the bottom of their fence, we call them hedgehog highways, and they can travel across gardens and be able to forage. Please, if you are a lover of plants and you do your garden, don't put down slug pellets, okay? Because hedgehogs eat them and they die. And if you're a really kind person and you want to help hedgehogs, don't leave out a saucer of milk. Milk makes them ill, okay? And the other thing I want to say is, please, if you are strimming, then make sure that the long grass is cleared of hedgehogs. I went to the park recently and I found a hedgehog that had his whole...
No, Barry,
no. I took it, don't worry, I took him to the vet.
He survived?
It was all right. He'd survived, but
Okay,
it was awful. It was awful, right? And leave a little pile of leaves, a pile of wood in some corner of your garden. They love that. That's a great place for them. They can go and forage, get some beetles and insects and stuff like that. So they are the most wonderful creatures, but they're now endangered. So they're on our extinction watch list. So if we want our hedgehogs to survive, get out there, drill those little holes in your fence, just about a
Something
CD
to do on
size.
Father's Day.
Yes, absolutely.
So what are you going to
I'll tell
say?
you what, if we ever have a green government, I want Barry to be hedgehog czar. That is amazing. I never knew you had so much expertise. I mean, there's a bigger issue here, and that's the way we do relate to biodiversity and to nature. And there are so many studies showing that, for example, if you're in a hospital and you can see trees out the window, your recovery is better than if you can't. It's astonishing. So if we can make those reconnections, and quite often in urban environments, we are not working with biodiversity, not working with nature,
Exactly right.
not creating those things that Barry was describing, but we're working against it. And we need to build that into planning, particularly in local authority level.
Layla, if you were mayor, hedgehog policy, briefly?
Do not build on green spaces. Obviously, I love a hedgehog, and Barry, honestly, I admire your knowledge. I'm not lucky enough to have a garden, sadly, so I can't take your advice into account. But we have to sometimes environmental controls have resulted in us not building enough in London, and we do have a housing crisis. But of course, protect the hedgehogs.
There, we must leave it. Thank you all very much. That is all we have time for. Thank you to all of our guests for your feisty discussions this morning. We will be back next week, and a very happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Have a great rest of your day, whatever you're doing. Thanks for being with us. Thank you very much.